Hey YouTubers, welcome back to What the Fish. Today we're going to do a maintenance on the 55 that I posted the setup video for a week or so ago. So sit back and enjoy the show. Alright, so we're going to go through a cleaning on this tank. Now you guys will remember this tank from a setup video. I did, I don't know, posted it I guess about a week ago. Maybe more, maybe less. But I had discussed in that video about under gravel filters and how they work, basically from pulling the draw from underneath of the gravel, so all the water is forced down through the gravel before it comes up the up tubes. So it's really important when you're using this kind of filter that you don't allow that gravel bed to get so clogged that water can't pass through it. So when you're doing a weekly maintenance, now another thing I wanted to point out is I added some plants in there. Plants are always good to help get rid of nitrates. I didn't put them in until I was reading nitrates, so the nitrogen cycle had already completed thanks to a couple of goldfish I put in there. And one plant, a sponge tongue. Basically they grow fairly easily. And then I waited till I had nitrates, and then I put, as you can see, a much more healthy plant load in there. Originally it was just some goldfish, one plant, and really heavily feeding to get the filter bed started up. Plus a cycled sponge filter that I put in there as well, also to help jumpstart things. But recently my 29-gallon grow out cichlids moved into here because they're getting ready to go into my 75 with some fish that are quite a bit bigger than they are, and I want them to get a little bit closer in size before I mix them. So I figured bigger tank, fish will get bigger quicker. More food, same thing. You know, it's all kind of logical. You feed them more, you have them in a bigger environment, they grow faster and bigger. But anyway, back to the filter. So today we're going to do the clean out, and it's really important that you do a good job when you're vacuuming the gravel. Stir it all up, get as much as the detritus and other fish waste that's down in there out of there. But what I was getting at with the plants is I tried to find, there's 3 plates that make up the bottom mat, and I tried to get the plates where the mats met, or in spots kind of a little bit away from the filter, like the furthest points, because that's where the stuff will tend to collect and where it's not really drawing from anyway, so the roots and the plants will use up the waste in those areas. The idea being that this is going to be a discus tank shortly. I decided to keep them in a quarantine tank, the discus that is, for a little while longer. I had kind of a rough coming in with them. Lost some with a wonky heater. So I really want to make sure that they're all good before they go into this tank. And I want to make sure that this tank is all good before they go into this tank. Discus aren't cheap fish, so they're not something you really want to mess around with. Especially when in their quarantine tank they've probably grown about 50% bigger than when I got them. I got them between 2 and 3 inches, and I would say they're probably close to 5 inches now. So maybe even 100% doubled in size, with the exception of the one that kind of looks stunted and hides all the time and just has me worried a lot. So let's get to it. So when you're starting your siphon, a little trick I learned doing pools and aquariums for quite some time. Easiest way, so you're not sucking on hoses, or you don't have to hook up to a vacuum line or anything like that to get your siphon started. If it's a pool, you can just take the whole hose and kind of feed it down to the bottom of the pool. In here, you kind of do the same thing. You get the end in, and you'll see the water will come up to the water line inside the hose. You plug the hose, and you pull where that water is over the lip. It starts to siphon. Now, if you're using a longer hose and you can't put your finger over the end of it, real simple solution for that, and that's just pinch the hose. And sometimes you got to make sure you hold your finger on long enough. Otherwise, you get air in your line and your vacuum doesn't start. But there we go. And then I know where I buried the plants. Like I have a plant that's just coming back up out of the gravel right here. It's really little. And then I'll move some of the gravel around down here, because this is where most of my feeding has been taking place, is right along the front edge. Trying not to block up that back edge. And you can see if I vacuum this gravel up here, you can see the edge of the mat right there in the front. Right? I love these gravel vacs because you can really get down in there and then kind of use it as a leveling tool. You run it across at one level and it'll pick it up in one spot and drop it somewhere else to level everything out, make it all nice. But you want to do it very systematically so that you make sure you're maintaining a nice flow through your under gravel system. If that gets clogged up, then your filtration isn't working. It's not doing what you have it in there to do. So yeah, just make sure you're very systematic in the way you do it. Get things a little stirred up, which kind of always happens when you're doing cleaning. And if you see any clear spots, like I just put an auto feeder in here, right in the back there, back here, so you'll make sure you get that spot, and you can tell that's where the auto feeder is because you pick it up and you can literally see the big chunks of leftover food and trash in the form of fish waste coming out. I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but when I'm stirring down here in the back, number one, the gravel's deeper for depth of field, and don't lift your siphon out the way I do either. Generally you want to cover the end, pull it up. But I don't have a whole lot of plantings in here where I'm worried about the gravel moving around too much yet. Like I said, and even though I have my cichlids in here and I know the cycle is good on the tank, I want to, these guys are a lot hardier than discus. So I want to keep them in there to keep producing waste. The feeder goldfish were running out, and since I'm getting rid of the Oscar, I won't be getting more, so they couldn't stay in here to continue the cycle. So I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to get through the vacuuming, and then I'll show you what we do after that. Alright, be right back. Alright, I'm kind of going to backtrack here for a second. So now, it brought me to a point where there was something I wanted to talk about really quickly. Generally, you're not going to work with just this type of filtration. You know, they'll give you a hang-on back filter. There'll be a little box filter with some carbon in it inside your tank. You'll have a canister filter, a sump. You'll have some other kind of filtration going besides just air. Now, there's three types of filtration in an aquarium. There's mechanical, biological, and chemical. My discus are in basically the same type as this, except they have two bigger sponge filters because it's a bare bottom tank, so you can't really do under gravel. The thing about both of these systems is neither one of them uses chemical filtration. Generally, when you hear people talk about chemical filtration, what they're talking about is using carbon in your system, and I don't. The reason for that is I have used it in the past when I was really lazy, because what it does when you first put it in anyway is it'll remove the contaminants from your water, but it deactivates, I guess you would say, relatively quickly. And then from what I've seen and heard, I've never experienced it myself, but then again, I really wouldn't know what to test for. I've heard it leaches if you leave it in there too long. I don't really know exactly what it is that it would leach, but apparently it leaches some toxic stuff back into your water. I never want toxic stuff going into my water, and while I try and stay as natural as possible, I needed to figure something out that worked for me and the fish and was pretty natural. So that's what brought me into plants. But the reason I wanted to backtrack a little bit is generally you're going to disconnect everything before you start doing your water change. You're going to disconnect your heaters. You don't want your heaters to come out of the water when you do your change. They'll crack, break, could cause any number of different problems. So you see, if you can see the two heaters in here, my backup and my primary heater, I have them angled and sort of a little bit lower in the tank. And the reason for that is because, very simply, heat rises. So if you put the heaters near the bottom, they also help with the circulation of the tank. They heat the water down at the bottom, rises to the top. So in addition to the under gravel filter and the sponge filters causing a front to back rotation in the tank, you're also going to have the heat adding to that rotation, that circulation of the water to keep water movement. And then, like I said, adding the plants in helps to get rid of those nitrates. So all in all, you have the mechanical filtration, which is the air pump that's driving the system. The biological filtration, which is the bacteria that builds up in your gravel bed. And you have a lack of chemical filtration. If things get bad and I feel I need it, I have bags. I can stick a bag down in the bottom, fill it with filter floss, and put a sandwich of carbon in the middle of it, and I can run carbon. I keep up on my maintenance right now, at least anyway, so I don't need carbon to do my job for me. I don't need it to remove the contaminants. I change the water frequently enough and monitor my parameters enough that if anything starts to get out of whack, I catch it pretty quickly. I do spend a lot of time watching my fish, which I think that's why most of us have fish, because they're really relaxing to watch. Okay, so now I've got the water out. I check the temperature. I don't want it to get down below. You can't see the backup heater because I got a piece of driftwood with some crazy Java moss growing on it, blocking it from the camera. But suffice to say, it's at its water line. So, like I said, I checked the temperature. The temperature is running right where I want it to. I'm going to start adding water back, and then I will show you what we do after we get the water back in, up to the right level. And there's one a little bit more in the center I have to vacuum, so I'll add water in, take some out, add it in, take it out. But just be very careful that your heaters don't come out of the water, because they will overheat, they will crack the glass, and it will be a costly mistake. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video right here, and then we'll come back after I get this thing all vacuumed out and cleaned up, and you can see what we do after that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get out our test kit, and we're going to test our water parameters. So every test kit's different, but I use the API Freshwater Master Test Kit. Some people will tell you have to test your KH and your... I mean, it really depends what your goal is in fish keeping. For me, I just want to provide an environment where the fish feel as close to their home environment as possible. So do your research on your fish before you get them to find out what water they're looking for. Think of it kind of like if you moved from a coastal place to somewhere high in the mountains, and you had to live in a little box high up in the mountains where the air is real thin. You might be able to do it. I'm sure you would acclimate to it. The main thing being consistency, and you wouldn't be too happy in a little tiny box anywhere, I don't think. So, like I said, what I try and do is make their little tiny box as much like their home where they would be in nature as possible. I mean, I of course don't want algae covering everything, but I also don't worry a whole lot about getting algae because they eat it. I don't really have much of a cleanup crew in here yet because, like I said, I want that bed to really develop some thick, good bacteria in it before I have someone in there cleaning it out. And some of the cleaning crew, I do have a few snails in here at this point. Probably a few more than I know, because when I put all that moss in, I'm quite certain there's some snail eggs in there somewhere. But I usually use plecos. I actually breed them. So when this starts to get some algae on it, I will either move my big pleco in here to just do a quick cleanup, or I will take a couple of bristlenose and throw them in here and have them clean it up. But with the discus, it's, you know, maybe once every couple of months I have to do that, because I'm so on top of the maintenance for those guys, because they're so susceptible to disease and parasites. But yeah, so I'm going to get into the tests, and that's the last thing I do. I record all my information in a little app I have on my phone called Aquarium Note. It's on the Android market. I really don't know if it's on the Apple market because I don't have an iPhone, but most of the stuff that's on Android market is on the Apple market as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a routine water change. About 20% of the water. It's a 55-gallon tank, and I changed about, actually this one was a little bit bigger than usual. I changed about 15 gallons. I usually change about 10 gallons. Roundabouts 20%. And in this tank right now I'm doing it about once a week, because I'm trying to let it get a little dirtied up, so to speak. The bacteria isn't going to develop if you are overdoing it with your maintenance. You'll be pulling all the bacteria out before it has a chance to really get good and established in the filter bed or the media bed. So any comments, drop them below. If you like what you saw, give me the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Maybe you can pick up another tip or two along the way. We're learning together here.